Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio inside Mac 6 Conscious Workspace in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. I'm your host and Phoenix Business Radio studio owner, Karen Nowicki, and I'm very excited to invite an old friend, not old as in like you're old, Sherry, but a dear friend, Sherry Anshara, who is a medical intuitive and intuitive business coach with Anshara Method of Accelerated Healing and Abundance. Welcome back, Sherry.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
I don't know that you've been on with us since I've been at Mac 6, have you? It was when I had the studio a couple miles down the street in the Wells Fargo building. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
I think you were one of my very first guests over there, which is such a delight. And to be able to stay in touch with you and see all the great things that you're doing on behalf of individuals, families, and business owners is amazing. So I know we have a lot to talk about. You're always working on something new and exciting. Let's kick it off by having you tell our listeners really who you are, what is the Anshara Method, and how did you come to this piece? I know you've got an incredible story.
Well, I'll make it short and sweet and to the point.
We've got time, so you pick your pace.
Okay. Well, actually, in 1991, I had an accident. You know how those accidents happen. And I actually had a near-death experience. And I don't swim. And I was 15 feet underwater, upside down in a car in the Connecticut River. And it wasn't a Kennedy. Oop, I couldn't help that. And I was actually helping someone. But what I learned is don't help, assist. Because when you assist, it makes more sense. And so with a broken neck and a broken back and a smashed head and even a brain out of place, ta-da! Everything that I had went away. Everything. And I was a very successful businesswoman. I flew my own plane. And man, you will love this. I was actually sued for alimony. But I got over it. And I actually, with a bravery and utilizing my own techniques in the very beginning, in 1997, I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona with my last $50 and didn't know anybody. And started all over again in the best way. And from that, in those experiences, in those few years after the accident, even though I lost everything, people started asking me to help them. Now, Karen, I said, I have lost everything. I'm really screwed up. I'm even homeless. But I went to live in the most fabulous home with this woman who heard about me and took care of me for a year. Well, I started penning my first book, and I was writing about cellular memory and memorization. And of course, I was ridiculed, said I was nuts, and take a pill, honey, you'll feel better. But I stuck to my guns. I didn't take a pill, and I didn't care what they said. And so I started my first book, and I said I really wrote it from the future, for the future, but I didn't know it at the time. And through the advent of transplants, they begin to study. And then a young doctor came to me years ago, and that started that journey and getting labeled a medical intuitive. But remember, I had a corporate entrepreneurial background of organizing, and I even became a VP of marketing of a national company in the 80s without a college degree. But I didn't know that you couldn't do that. And I produced air shows. I spoke at the Pentagon. I did all kinds, but I just thought they were normal things to do. It wasn't like, well, I did this. It was like, wow, this happened to me. But now something really happened. And from that, I put it all together. So I discovered that emotional and mental and physical, spiritual, and even financial, that they're connected. But when one is off, then they all get off. And people say, well, what do you mean financial? Because what's the cost to us of our lives and our creativity not to be who you are? So the Anshara Method is getting you to the core of who you really are and many purposes of why you came, and then how to participate, which I call organizational consciousness.
Okay, organizational consciousness. Talk a little bit about that. That's the blend of everything that we have going on and making sure that it's cohesive and it's all jiving together?
Yes, and it's connected. So what organizational consciousness, when I use this as a metaphor. You know what? I have cleaned out more closets in my entire life than you can ever imagine. And I believe I have a little troll that lives in my closet, and I'll get it all organized by color and, season or whatever. And somehow it gets disorganized.
Imagine that. I have the same thing happen in my closet.
Or cupboards or anything. So how does that happen? Because one thing I discovered is that we thinky too much. So it's not clear thought. Clear thought is organizational. But thinky, we make up these incredible stories in our computer brain. And then I discovered that this left computer brain will go to the male side. This is not gender. This is the masculine right side. And so we will tend to get into the emotionalism or emotionality of it. And then we recreate that isn't organized. But when I assist my clients, business people, but you know what, Karen, kids get it. Little kids get it. I will teach them how to connect left brain, right brain, and their schoolwork gets better. Businessmen, their businesses get better, their relationships, because we have been separated, that your personal life and professional life are different. They're one and the same. They're totally one and the same. So we've been taught to separate ourselves from our own self. And so organizational consciousness, it means in the easiest way, what the heck am I doing?
And taking charge of that, right? Being mindful of it, what I hear you saying is being mindful of our thoughts and not making it so damn hard and allow for maybe spirit to come through or soul to come through. It has us showing up in a brighter way.
Yes, because you are the soul and you are the spirit. And actually, I've created 5 near-death experiences. I call those my university trips.
Right, not just the one, but 5. You spoke to the one in our introduction, but I was aware that you had multiple near-death experiences.
And really, it wasn't scary. No, it actually was sort of, I call it going to the university. Isn't that a good one?
Yes.
And so in organizing things, like how does it work? So I've actually said this to clients, business people, or even, have you ever seen something on TV and you say, you know what? I came up with that idea, but they didn't act upon it.
Oh, yes.
And they'll go, because they have been brought up or they bought into a program, not judging it, what I call duality, good and bad, high and low. So people will say, you know what, this is not good for me, but I'll eat it. Or this is really good for me, but I won't eat it. It's that simple. It has to make sense, Karen. If something doesn't make sense, I remember years ago, because I'm an avid history reader and an avid reader. And I remember reading this man's book. He called it The Information Highway. And that was sort of in the 90s, and people thought he was crazy. What do you mean informational? Well, look what we're doing. Are we not on an information highway? And even during these times that we have been, sort of confined, actually, so if you can't do it one way, there's 10,000 one ways. So during the beginning of this, back it up, I had met a gal about a year and a half ago at a conference that she wasn't going to go to, and I wasn't going to go to. And there were over 300 people. And guess where we sat?
Next to each other. Yeah.
So that's the spirit. The spirit is spirit. It's the energy. And your soul is your guide. And when you listen to that soul, that's why I love soul music, because when you listen to it, it resonates. So getting to the point of resonating, so she and I resonated and we kept in touch. So when all this started, just before it started, she called me and she said, would you like to co-author a book with me? Oh, I said, would I? And then COVID hits, right? And she is in, Tennessee. So I wrote all my part. And every week we would talk and get it together. And so I wrote within her book all the emotionality of disease. What is the core? And if we get into our head, and here's an example. Well, my family has it, so I'm going to get it. Right. Or this is the way we do it, and I was born on some side of the track. What track? Get on your own track. and make your own track. And so that organizational consciousness is really organizing your creativity so that you can now create it, and then you can manifest it, and then you can actualize it. So that's what I found was the missing component, is that people wouldn't actualize, like make it happen. So you are doing this fabulous, radio, and look at all your guests that they're able to share. But because of your creativity, you implemented, then you manifested the space, and then you actualized the show, and your guests can share their information, but you are the catalyst. You are the organizational consciousness of this.
I love that. So I'm thinking about business owners and executive leaders that I know, and you mentioned, having this idea or presenting yourself somewhere where it seems like it shouldn't have happened, but there you are. And we often think, I don't have time to act on this, or I'm too busy, or I've got all these other things when I have more money. Those kinds of thinking I'm hearing you say are keeping us, that's the very thing that's keeping us from achieving what it is that we want to do. And that universe wouldn't have planted the seed for us if it wasn't something that was for us to begin with, right?
Yes, and you are the universe. And now the one voice of yours, your one voice, gave it the multiverse. You gave it a multiversal voice through your show that people can, talk about or share about. And one thing that I teach executives is, this is my first tool for everybody, is called NEO, Non-Emotional Observer.
Talk about that.
And so when we observe something, we can witness the miraculousness. See, the magician is the trickster. That's the thinky. But the magic is making it happen and putting it together. But when you put it together, allowing it to expand, allowing it to take on a life of its own. This is not woo-woo. This is quantum physics in action. It's allowing it to come to life. So I teach people like the 4 principles of NEO. One is to create, and how do you do it in the body? Your right brain is your creative brain. Your left side is your creativity. Then the implementation of NEO is the next step. So through your body, I'm not going to get religious here, but this is the Christ consciousness. It means crystal clear, and it means Messiah, got to save yourself from yourself. But the implementation is your body. So you created a show. So your implementation is that you went out and you shared it with people. And I remember the first time I met you at a Lions meeting, and you were sharing about and I just sat there and I thought, wow, that lady really rocks. I didn't know you. I didn't have this, but I thought, she's creating something. So that was the implementation by going around. And then you actually manifested it in that Wells Fargo building, the first one.
Yep.
And then what happened is you then actualized. Those are actually the 4 steps: to create, implement, manifest, and actualize, whether it's a business, a relationship, a product, but you're not thinking about it. You have that core organizational consciousness of how you do it.
And that's NEO, that's the non-emotional observer.
Yes.
How do you work with somebody who had tended in the past to make decisions based on emotion and how they're feeling in that moment? I would imagine that happens frequently. Even successful people would have to shift. So you help them understand these 4 different stages or levels, and then they begin to kind of step away from what they're doing. Is that how that works?
Yes. And what I assist them to do in organizing is that feeling comes from the heart and the body. This is not woo-woo. They've measured the heart. It has a huge resonance. The brain, not so much. But if we're only using half the brain, we're missing this left side that goes to the right side of the body. We're missing the manufacturing side of it. And so when I'm working with executives in their business, most of them will get in the outcome. I mean, how many of us get in the outcome? So I say, stay out of the outcome so the income or the results happen. So when I'm working with them with a plan, and I just make this up. So let's say November 15th, we're going to start a new business. Well, it could happen on the 14th, or it could happen on the 17th. But we already know that. So stay out of the outcome. You've already put that down, that it's going to be November 15th. Day or 2, whatever, give or take. You don't know. But that's your plan. And so that's good. But now, how do we take the steps to get there, get out of the outcome so the results or the income can happen? And so now we start organizing. So we're going to develop the product, we're going to package it, we're going to do whatever it is, and then we're going to start marketing it and putting it out there. And like you did, you were the self-marketer. You went out and said, this is what I'm doing. So in this next step is I teach wordology as your biology.
Yes.
So if you put it out there, whoever the you is, but inside in the emotional part, the emotionality of it says, I really can't do this. I just can't do it. I'll keep doing it, but people can feel now. This is feel the resonance. How about they said one thing, but I don't believe that's what they meant. And that is really what occurs. And so during this COVID, this is not about me. I started writing my 6th book. I have 20 chapters written. I have another 9 to 10 to go that I'm working on. So I'm working on creating an online course that'll be 15 weeks that I start in July. I started another online platform on Eventbrite called Insider Secrets of the Shift. So people will get out of fear. But there were some platforms I couldn't put it on because they have police. I'm not talking about the police, but they have, it rhymes with Facebook. And so, and so there were things, I got kicked off twice and I was congratulated by so many people. So here's another step. Fear is lack of information. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's not false evidence appearing real unless you are an investigative discovery, and I love that show, and see how people will set someone up, to go to jail or something or whatever, or they did it themselves. But when you get out the information and you hit a word that I love, when we're emotional, we make decisions. But when we're conscious, we make choices. Decisions, we get stuck. Well, that's the way it is. It'll always be that way. No, it won't. But choices, you can do something. And so you say you have this fabulous product and it only comes in purple or red or blue. But somewhere down the line you go, you know what? I bet I could make this product in green. So that is expansion. But Henry Ford said he just liked cars that were black. But someone came along and said, geez, I like a red car. And the thing about Henry Ford, because I'm from Michigan, he never created cars. He didn't. What his brightness was, the assembly line. His assembly line changed manufacturing around the world. And so did the gin mill or the cotton mill guy that did it. So everybody has a fabulous idea inside themselves.
Everybody.
Pardon?
Everybody.
Everybody. I've gotten some of my best material from kids.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about COVID, right? And for a lot of people, fear is showing up, not only about their health and their well-being, like you said, well, so-and-so got it, so I'm going to get it, that kind of thing. But even folks who are concerned about the longevity of their businesses, what, based on what you've already shared with us, have you been working with clients that are in fear, and how are you able to pull them through that so that they can, again, be in that positive space and just be open to what the universe has for them?
Well, the interesting thing, I have never not stopped seeing clients, Karen.
Oh, I believe that. Especially, I would imagine even more so are coming to you and resonating with you.
But the ones that are uncomfortable, we work over the phone. And the best part of it is I have clients all over the world. Mostly the United States, but I have some clients in Europe. And actually, somebody contacted me that I'm having, I don't even know what it's about, that is in England. And so we're going to have a call on Saturday some man reached out to me. And so, and he said, I've been watching your Facebook postings. So how do we do this? Fear is lack of information. So when I'm working with actually, I worked with a brand new client yesterday that was referred to me. I'm not doing bragging here, but she was.
We want you to brag, so you have my permission.
Okay. But she came to me, was referred by a doctor. Karen, I don't even know her. I've never met this doctor. And next week we're going to get together. But this lady spent 4 hours with me. It's like a half a VIP day. And we were able to address her fears. So actually, the truth is, I know COVID's out there. I know people have died, but you must take care of yourself. You must know how to support your own body. So that is one of the things to release the fear. It's not just whatever you're eating. Lord's Prayer says, give us this day our daily bread. And one of my clients is actually a minister who actually took this to the group, whatever. I said, in the Lord's Prayer, it says, give us this day our daily bread. Is that beer and pizza or wine and caviar? Or is it what are you feeding yourself? Not just food, but what is the BS, the belief systems that you're feeding yourself? And so this lady was really, really afraid. And her doctor recognized that it was emotional and there had to be another step. So in that 4 hours that we worked, I really should have taken a picture of her, and I have many clients, but you could see the physical change. And now she was not afraid of getting COVID. That's the point. So if we're fearful, it lowers our resonance, which is our resistance. I actually did a Facebook Live on resistance. If you resist yourself, you lower your resistance. But if you take care of yourself, you're going to resist the disease or illness. Mm-hmm. And actually, not one of my clients, honestly, not one of my clients had COVID, and none of my friends, because they look at things in that organizational consciousness. What can I do to support my body? So if I'm eating sugar, which isn't wrong, you can eat it if you'd like, whoever it is, but what if I didn't eat the sugar, and what if I ate the natural fruit? What is it going to do? And I've actually have pictures of cells that have changed that the doctor sent me from with icky cells to actually perfect cells. But you must shift the mindset and take back your power. And that's how you step into your power. Otherwise, you're being controlled by the outside forces.
One of the things I love about you, and every time we've spoke, I've heard you speak, we've had these conversations, we've had offline conversations, the way in which you use words is fascinating to me because, like even manifest or just some of it always has a deeper meaning every time you say something. I love that. Would you say pre-accident, the very first accident, near-death experience, did you have a love for words and understanding, or is that something that arrived after this original first near-death experience?
Well, my first original was at 3 years old.
Oh.
And yeah, it was 3. And this is what happened. I was pretty conscious, but this is how language got to me, because I would listen to my mother, and she was lovely. I mean, she didn't beat me or anything. She was fabulous. In fact, she was a seamstress and ruined me in clothes because she made beautiful stuff. So, I think she gave me the clothing gene. I'm sure she did. But anyway, I would listen to them converse. And I had 3 older siblings that were teenagers when I was little, and they really took good care of me. And so I was always listening to what they said. And so words in listening. So I teach people to listen to their body, don't hear. Because when we hear through the computer brain ears, we filter. And so I was always interested in what people said. And I remember one time saying to my mother when I was that little, how come that when people say something, they don't mean it? And she'd say, why do you ask these questions? And so through my life, I would ask questions and I would get in trouble. And so I thought, we say one thing, but that's not what we're saying. So what is it that we're really saying? And I remember one time as a little girl raising my hand in class, and I said, well, if Columbus discovered America, why did people live here? And I got in trouble. And the teacher said, memorize it and pass the test. And then years later, I realized he memorized to teach me to memorize. But that wasn't the fact. But he gave me a gift. Because I didn't have Wikipedia, I fell in love with libraries. And I started reading books like way, way more adult. I don't mean adult books, but looking for facts, like what really happened. Though I didn't know I was looking for facts, I was really attempting to comprehend it. So he gave me an understanding and I had a knowing. So that's what I teach business people or kids, or how do you comprehend it? Without comprehension, it doesn't work. And I look some of the very wealthy people that have created so many, Steve Jobs, for instance, but he died of liver cancer, and cancer's eating yourself up alive. So he had all that money and all that prestige. But so what? What else could he have given? What else did he have? And that's how I look at everybody. When people say, well, I could just die. Well, but if you did that, you might have something inside you so incredible that could change people's lives. And so if you say that, or I can't do this, and one thing I figured out is when you tell someone you cannot, not, those NOTs turn into KNOTs.
They get locked in there.
Yes, and then that creates the dis-ease or the illness, or like cancer is eating yourself up alive, depression is deepest disappointment. Now, that doesn't mean that that's discounting them, but we have to start somewhere at that foundation of how it got changed. So it's not that we did anything wrong or bad, we just didn't have the comprehension. And when people have the comprehension, okay, now I can make a choice. I can do this with this, or guess what? I can do all of it in the timeline.
I don't know if this will be a fair question to ask. So if not, tell me it's not fair, and we'll move on to something else. But not only are we working through COVID and just this unique time medically with the quarantine and businesses closing and just the uncertainty there, but also our situation with George Floyd and racism really popping up. I'll say again, I'm sensing personally that there is a shift in the winds, and that we're going to be as a collective in a much better place as a result, but we're going to have to go through some collective pain. I would love, that's just kind of what I've been sensing and what I've been praying and meditating about. Could you speak to, if you're willing, kind of what do you see and how can we help each other get wherever it is that we want to go from a broader perspective?
That is so great, Karen. And I'm happy to answer it in the best way I can. Okay, I actually, on Facebook, somebody said something about Black Lives Matter, which they do, and everybody, animal lives matter to me too. And so I said, you know what, we have to get out of the emotionality of this. We must get out of the emotionality of it. And I teach wordology is your biology. The N word came from Africa called Niger. They didn't call them Nigerians. The slang was, we know the N word, correct? But they don't know that actually Black people sold, and I wrote this on Facebook, Black people sold Black people to Black people. Black people sold Black people to white people. White people sold white people to white people. And white people sold every color, and it's not about Black or white. In Africa right now, I don't know if you know that, but Black Muslims are selling Black Christians, children, into slavery. So I said, this is not a black and white issue. This is a belief system. This is a non-consciousness. So I said, if you go back to Turkey, they genocided 6 million Armenians. Did you know that?
Yes.
And I always say, what was lost? Who got lost? Or what the Nazis did to the Jews. If you go back to China, there is this movie out that I'm going to create a class on. It's called The Last Emperor of China. And it's the most, because I teach this figure 8 as a BS program. Oops, I did it again. Oops, I did it again. And that's what we're doing in this duality system that has been going on. So we have been programmed to go us against them. And it doesn't even matter if it's two rival Hispanic gangs fighting against each other. Or go back to West Side Story. It was Hispanics fighting the whites. So duality has a sense that someone has to be more than less than. More than less than. And so the person wrote back and said I was prejudiced. I said, really, this is interesting. Years ago, when I lived in the suburbs, and there was this fabulous Black jazz club downtown Detroit, in the worst area you can imagine. I'd be the only white person there. You know why? Because they really played. There was a black keyboard piano. He was blind. Nobody had any music in front of him, nothing. I would be the only white, and a woman no less, that would go down there, and they'd walk me to my car because they know that I loved it. And people said, aren't you afraid to go down there? I go, I'm more afraid I'll miss something.
Right.
And then I said, when I was in the corporate world, I actually had a lot of prejudice because I was the first woman in this company and made it to the ranks of VP. I'll tell you about prejudice. I can tell you about, going after me in every way, shape, or form. But you know what? You can't allow someone else to define you. And we've got to stop defining people as black or white or this or that. And so all my life, I've had friends, been so blessed. I even have friends that contact me from the third grade. I mean, that's from like the ancient days. So, and that's what somebody said to me. What we always liked about you is that you never stuck to one group. And I didn't. I would go in, there would be this kind of kids or that kind of kids. But I was just interested in finding out about them, though I didn't know it. Mm-hmm. So if we're truly interested, I mean, I have many friends that they're mixed marriages. And this is the best, Karen. One of my friends in Ohio said to me, now, they've been married, they had 2 kids and all that. And one day she said to me, did you know my husband was black? I said, you're kidding. When did you notice? So if we stop noticing the differences, and all the violence isn't going to happen. I was in Detroit when the riots hit in the 60s, and then there were the other riots in LA. We've got to stop making this a matter of color, because now what? These children that are black or white or Hispanic or whatever the heck they are, where do they fit? Where do they fit? And what are they seeing? And there was this one older black lady where they were burning down her business. Yeah. Now, wait a minute. And what areas are getting, I'm not going to get political here, but if you look at the political nature of it, I'm not getting political, look at the cities that went down the tube. This is not being political, but we have to look at the consciousness of it. What are the belief systems surrounding it? And that's the part with the shift is, Karen. And that's why I'm doing this Insider Secrets of the Shift, to explain what is going on that is more challenging, because now this is my platform and nobody can take me off. But then no one has to go on if they don't like it.
Right.
They make a choice. They make a choice. And so so this is the best one. I'm going to ask you, do you believe in other lifetimes?
I do, actually.
Well, and I'm going to ask you this as the host. So one time I had these 2 gals came into the class. One was the uppity Snotsdale and this other gal. And the other gal is black. And this is what she said. She said, I'm from the hood. I'm from the hood. And I said, really, that's interesting. I go, are you from adulthood? Are you from the Ku Klux Klan hood? Are you from the invisible hood that covered up that you can't see about sexual abuse? Or somebody beating? I go, I know all kinds of hoods. There's all kinds of hoods that people put on themselves. And right now, we all have hoods on. And she looked at me and she said, oh my God, the Ku Klux Klan wore hoods. I said, I don't care if you're from the hood, but where are you from inside you? And so these 2 gals found out that other times that they had been enslaved in their own idea. And guess what? They went out to lunch together 2 days in a row and talked. And it didn't matter that one was black and one was white. They were 2 women, and they discovered that they had similar experiences in business of having prejudice against them. And so it wasn't that. So when we're prejudiced, we're really prejudiced against ourselves, because we're trying to convince somebody that we're right. And duality is right and wrong. You know what? We will die to be right. And we will die to be wrong. And that's not the truth. That's not organizational consciousness. That's BS.
And it has me thinking again, NEO that you had mentioned earlier, the non-emotional observer, when we can step back and notice how we're responding to something, a situation, and just be aware of the emotion, but not really live inside of it, then we can make these choices that are really for our highest and best.
Yes. And when we're observing, and one of my clients years ago called me and she said, I love being Neo. I looked at that person and said, gee, they're a jerk, or that person. And then she said, Sherry, I got it. I have to observe myself first. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the deal. Observe yourself. So in Wordology, you're going to love this, Karen. Years ago, I was doing this talk for women. I got to be one of the keynote speakers. And afterwards, we will have profiles, behaviors, and roles. So we can have a profile that we don't like, and we can put it onto somebody else. So this lady came up to me and said, Sherry, you're a bitch. So in the old paradigm, I would have said, bitch, you're a bitch. And then I so I looked at her and I smiled and I said, you know what? In Wordology is your biology, bitch means being the itch. So I wonder what's bugging you. You're blaming on me. It's all about you, but thanks for the compliment. It stopped her in her tracks. But I didn't get sucked in. Yeah. And she was like shocked about it. And then she said, you know what? I really don't know you. And I said, that's a fact. So when we judge or we get involved in the emotionality, we lose being reasonable. Our ability to reason as Neo, our ability to reason non-emotionally, our ability to reason to see what is this really about or why is this experience? And people say, well, I don't want to stand around thinking about it. You're not thinking about it. The more conscious you become, it becomes part of your natural. It's like riding a bike. When you first ride, you're a little wobbly, and then you ride it and you don't think about it. First time you drive a car, you're not sure, whatever. And then you drive a car because you comprehend how to ride a bike. You comprehend how to drive a car. And now you comprehend how you participate. And you respond, not react. Because react is act one, scene two, act whatever it is. And that's what all this collective. So there's a fine line. I used to love to go to Jimmy Buffett concerts years ago. I loved it. And it was fun. But there was a difference between a tailgate party that then turned into a riot. It's that happens that quickly. Mm-hmm. But what is the harm that can be done but to your own self? And then we do regret. Or some of the police officers that have been killed. Now, I'm not stepping up for police officers, against. I'm looking at these are lives. All lives matter. And why would we take someone's life for an emotional decision instead of a clear choice of consciousness? So when we begin to honor our own life, then we honor other lives, because that's what we're here to do, is support each other, assist each other, not kill each other. Mm-hmm. And see, all this happens because nobody's listening. They're talking and they're hearing.
And defending whatever it is that they're thinking, yes, from a place of emotion.
Yes. So what does that mean? Or pulling people out of cars. And there were more Black businesses that were destroyed in this. That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Right.
They almost killed a man yesterday because they said he stole the phone, and he never did. Fortunately, he got away. But what would have happened to this young man? What contribution could this young man make in the future? We don't know. But if they killed him, we would never know.
I'm not sure why I'm thinking of this story, but I'm going to trust that it will take us somewhere in our conversation. When I was married the first time, I knew that my husband had been unfaithful, and I kind of went looking for proof, and I couldn't find any, but I just viscerally knew. So out of, I'm going to use the word smallness or fear, I started daydreaming about ways to set him up so I could prove it. And how warped is that, right? So and I, as it relates to what we have going on in the world, when we feel wronged or we have an experience that's painful, I wanted somebody so desperately to hear me and for it to change that I was willing to go and pretend like something had happened just to say, see, I'm right. You did it, when really that was just bullshit. I don't know why that showed up for me, but maybe you can make some sense out of that for me.
Well, what it is you're making sense to you. So if you look at our ability, and I'm not getting religious here, but that's how I created this: create, implement, manifest, and actualize. I was looking one day at the word Yahweh. Yahweh has 4 symbols, and in whatever it is. And then it's said in the Bible, and this used to confuse me, or all the books. If we're made in God's image, why are we less? Or Jesus said, you shall do as I do and more. And all the great leaders. Buddha said you're the Buddha. You're the God. Well, if we are that, why do we make ourselves less? So in order to prove, I call that the childish adult ego, the CAE, instead of the perfect child, the one that's going to implement. So the childish adult ego, because they have been offended in their idea, it's called get even. And so we do, and I read about it in my one book about the setup. We will set ourselves up to prove ourselves wrong. See, I knew I was right. You wronged me. And so,
right.
Isn't that just the coolest? But see, what we're utilizing is our creativity in a non-productive way.
Right.
And one of my favorite words in any language is practical. If it doesn't have a practical application, then why are we doing it?
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense. But the wonderful thing about practicality is the variety that we can do. Now, this, like we say, we have to mop up our messes. That's a term, right? We did this, or they did this, or he did this, or she did this. And then I said, well, what mop are you going to use? And my clients have said, what do you mean, what mop? Well, there's dry mops, wet mops, big mops, floppy mops, stick mops, foam mops. So I go, look at the variety of mops we have in mopping up our mess. But now look at the creativity of the way we've created all the messes. So is this mess over here on this side, are you going to use the dry mop? Or is this one you're going to really use a soaking wet mop to clean up this mess? So isn't that hilarious?
Lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
And then why did I have to create the mess? Now I got to go out and buy another mop.
Right. Right.
So why create the mess to mop it up anyway? And just create conversations in listening and relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the part I like. In relationship, is you're a ship, I'm a ship, but we're relating. If we don't relate, we're going to run into the iceberg, or we're going to run into the explosion. And so if you wouldn't like to be the explosion, don't be the match.
Mm-hmm.
Don't match that frequency, that resonance. And that's what's happening in the riots. It makes no sense. It's nonsense. It makes no sense. It's not conscious. And it certainly is not organized in a way that benefits.
No.
And that happens in business too.
Absolutely. You've got 2 books then, is that right, coming out next? You have the one with that you're collaborating on and the one you're working on your own.
Which will probably be done like the end of fall. And I'm not sure of the name of it yet. But when I wrote about cellular memory in 91, they thought it was nuts. Now I'm writing about DNA, Karen, in a way. And I actually have, in the first part of the book, it said, please don't read this book. I actually put it in this book. And I said, and for the scientist, don't ask me proof, because I'm not going to give you proof. No, I had proof of cellular memory in 91, and I even referred to it. So I'm writing this book on DNA from the future for the future, just like the first one, only I didn't know I was doing that. So I actually have put disclaimers in it. And as soon as I'm done, I'm going to send it to 10 people. Maybe you could be one of them. And I'm going to have them read it and give me their feedback. Really give me their feedback about it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
I'm going to just throw this phone out the way. Here, I forgot to move it up. And so that's what, so I'm really looking for their feedback. And one of my favorite books I wrote is called The Intelligence Code, because I never wrote it. 14 of my clients wrote it. Uh-huh. And you can actually get it up, make a plug. You can get it on Amazon Kindle. And it was what I taught them, and it was under my old branding, Quantum Pathic, not Anshara, of how they took the tools. There's 2 CEOs in there that are married to each other, rock their relationship. They went from a soulmate, which is a baloney program, to soul match. It's beautiful. One of the leading oncologists in the world, he wrote what I assisted him with headaches. There's a chiropractor in there, but my best one is Marlo. Marlo at that time is a hairdresser from Ohio, and Karen, she was making $14,000 a year. And this past year, she made 80. That's business. That's the shift. That's the paradigm. And she, when I first met her, she said, I live in a very depressed area. And I go, how depressed is it? So it was not just her attitude, but her belief system that if I live in a depressed area, I'm going to be depressed. And last year she made $85,000. So how did that happen in 3 years? That's pretty spectacular for a single person.
And we all have that ability in us.
Everybody does. It's some of these new kids on the block, they call them these new kids. I mean, they're 7 and 8 years old and 10 years old around the world, and they're creating water systems and, technology and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. We've got to stop saying no and turn it around to the word on. Let's go on. Let's not know anybody anymore. Mm-hmm. Because when you N-O somebody, you don't get to K-N-O-W them. So stop saying no and start saying, I'm willing. So when people come to me, this is wordology. Sherry, I'm ready. I go, no, you're not. You're not ready. Get out of town. How many times have you been ready? Are you willing? When we are willing to make the change from the inside out, the outside in changes. So we've been taught that life is a projection, what do they call it? Oh, a reflection. Mm-hmm. Well, in a reflection, there's nothing. You can walk away, there's nothing. But life is a projection that makes it manifest. I have a drink here. This is called a buy drink. I'm using an example. I'm putting a plug in. I love these buy drinks. They have tea, but I also have my vitamins in there. Mm-hmm. And so somebody came up with the idea of a buy drink. What did buy mean? Buy or buy? I don't know. But thank goodness they came up with it. And then in the summer, they make lemonade, and they also make tea, and they have different varieties. I don't know these people. I can put a plug in for them, but I love these buy drinks. I just love them. But thank God somebody created them. And I'm grateful for Costco because they sell them by the case. So somebody had this brilliant idea, and they did it. But what if somebody had a drink for a bye-bye drink? Or a hello drink, Hello Kitty. But they didn't do it. But they didn't do it because they didn't believe that they had the ability. Well, we have the ability to create and then implement and manifest and actualize. And I'm so grateful for the actualization. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Look what we can do with our mouse, with that little, and whoever named it a mouse.
Right.
And whoever named it Zoom. And whoever named it the internet. But we have an internet inside of us. And what do we do with that inner net? Our foundation.
There you go again with those wonderful shifting for me of how to use words. By the way, look what I have in my lunch today. Isn't that funny? my own buy drink. I reached over as you were chatting to grab my lunch. Today I have the Zambia Bing Cherry one.
Ooh, and this one I have right here is the watermelon, and it's got my vitamins, my powder, vitamins, uh-huh. And so I just love that, and it just gives a flavor, and that's why I love the creativity that people Sprouts. I get things at Sprouts, I get things. I love Trader Joe's, and I also get things at Whole Foods, and I get things at Costco. They're all retail stores. They all sell food, but look at the variety. Then I look out into the world at the variety of people, mm-hmm. all the different colors and flavors of people, just like a buy drink or a tea or whatever. If we don't partake of each other in a kind way, resonance of connection, then what's the point? There is no point to me.
Mm-hmm. Another life experience that's coming up for me as you're sharing is I have often said I get frustrated and overwhelmed when I'm standing in the grocery store or Walgreens or something like that with the amount of choices, let's say for mascara or whatever product. I don't need that many choices, and I'll allow myself to get overwhelmed. And as you're sharing this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's how I'm thinking about this. I can allow myself to get overwhelmed and frustrated, but if I looked at it like how glorious is this, that there's all these different companies and people and individuals who are creating, so many different options and choices, and just stand in the power and the beauty of that and allow myself to make a decision that feels empowering versus, oh my gosh, I hate this. I can see how it would immediately shift in that very moment.
And I look at all the. Can I give you an example? Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. I'm going to use. Here's my cheater glasses. See these cheater glasses? So let's say this is what I teach business people, male, female, kids. It doesn't matter. But let's say no one ever created cheater glasses before. Let's say I have the idea to create cheater glasses. So this is that creation of us. For making God's image, and we create. So whatever the God is. So this is creation, and this is and it makes sense. So I got this idea. So in my right brain, I call this create, organize, consciousness, organization, organize. So the organization, and this is how we create wealth. So this is the template to create. What is it going to look like? So I see my schematic drawing. I'm not an engineer, but there's the engineering to it, right? We're engineering something. And all engineers are creative, or we'd be falling off of bridges. So now my body is going to implement this creativity that I organized. So from my body, typing it out, I'm going to send out purchase orders to a plastic company, plastic injection molding. Here, this is a different plastic. Underneath what this is, there's threads for stitching this. There has to be an optical that they have to get the right, whatever it is, optic for this. I have to have packagers. I have to have marketers. I have to have the design for it. Now a designer. So that's what, about six suppliers, right? So I implement. So I send out purchase orders to all of these companies. They have employees that bring in money to pay for their families and their kids to go to school. That's called the implementation in the wealth. Now it all comes back to me. And through my left brain, I'm going to organize the manufacturing of this product. Now I have a plant here in Tempe, Arizona, or wherever it may be. And I'm going to pay my employees to put this all together. This is where they miss this. It's called actualization. So from my heart, which is the highest resonance, not because I said so, it's measured, and through my hands, in the Hebrew letter Kaf in the palm, I now actualize it. So I put it out on the internet. Sherry's Glasses Are Us. I can sell it to optical companies. I can sell it wholesale, retail, and now the money comes to me. Those are the 4 steps of create, implement, manifest, and actualize by utilizing both sides of my computer brain to organize it. And that's how we create wealth. But that's how we can also create destruction. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the coolest?
It is.
That is the practical magic of it. And then that's the projection. I projected these. If they were a reflection, it wouldn't happen. Nobody would get paid. There would be no wealth, and I couldn't send out purchase orders.
Yeah, that's a powerful distinction. Well, it's already been almost a full hour of our time together. Doesn't it goes so fast, and always such a delight to just sit and bask in your wisdom and just the ease in which you share the wealth of knowledge and experience that you have to offer us. You talked about the books coming up. Mm-hmm. Where is the best place for folks to stay in touch with you? You mentioned social media a couple times and Facebook. Is that a great place to follow you?
And you can go to my website. It's called SherryAnshara.com. And the great part of it is you can get a free ebook that says Getting Your Answers in 10 minutes. And you can also sign up for a 10-minute complimentary session. Whatever that is, I love to do that. And I am on Facebook. My business page is Anshara, and it's also Sherry Anshara. And then I have 2 Facebooks, Conversation with Sherry Anshara, which is a private group on Tuesday, but everybody's welcome. And we talk about things. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I have a personal and a professional profile on that. I'm also on Instagram, and I'm also on Twitter. And I'm also doing a course every other Wednesday. Next Wednesday is the 17th coming up, and it is on Eventbrite. And it's called Insider Secrets of the Ship.
I was going to ask you to circle back to that. Very good.
And it's only $15, and it's an hour. We go longer. And so I utilize this time to do more creation. I'm getting ready to start a program on Patreon, which will, be a private group. And so the wisdom that we all have is inside of us. Mm-hmm. And so I invite you to go to SherryAnshara.com, or if you'd like to call me, you can call me at 480-609-0874. So it's 480-609-0874, and be happy to talk with you about anything, because personal and professional is the same.
Great way to round that back out, because that is how you began our conversation today for this time together. Again, it's Sherry Anshara, Sherryan, as in Nancy, Shara. And find Sherry on social media, all platforms, right? In addition to her website, sherryanshara.com. I am so thrilled to be with you again, and look forward to seeing when your books are released. Your books are available on, your other books are currently available on Amazon and your website. Where do we find them? Both places?
If they go to my website, you can get them from Amazon. But I have one called And the Point Is, Beyond Duality. The And the Point Is came from my mother. I only said it one time only, when she said things are always the same. And I went, And the Point Is, and got in trouble.
Well, thank you for the book title, Mom.
My poor mom, she survived my childhood. I also have Take Back Your Power, You Becoming You. So you can find those books on Amazon. Can I just put a quick plug in here?
Please.
I have a letter here that came from a prisoner in a federal prison in Arizona, Karen. He sent me 2 letters, and I'm going to put this out to the audience. And he said, because of my books, it changed his life. And he is creating a healthcare app, while he sits in federal prison here in Arizona. He won't be out for a year or 2. And so I'm looking for a partner, an investor, or a mentor, because I'm that's not my genre, but he is so brilliant. And he thanked me, and he utilized the wordology in his letter and thanked me. He's 29. He has 2 children that he hasn't seen. And he's going to get out. And he thanked me. He said, your books changed my life. And this is the second prisoner. I have no idea how they got my books, or the first one. And that started out the intelligence code, when he read what happened to these 14 people. And I sent him all my other books.
Oh, my goodness.
So you don't know, Karen, who you're touching today, or any of your shows, by what you said.
Yeah.
And that's the connection you're making. So I thank you so much for what you're doing for the community.
Well, I appreciate your acknowledgement. And I've certainly had plenty of affirmations this year in particular. You and I talked about this offline before we came on air today, just showing up and saying yes, and looking for opportunities that come from within, and how I can be of greater service to people. And I've had similar experiences like you just shared with this gentleman who's incarcerated right now. What a gift you've given him. And the fact that he was bold enough and excited enough to actually reach out and let you know what he's doing with that wisdom and that shift that he's experienced as a result of your teaching.
And that's a gift to me, really. It's a blessing. You know, if that had come even from the CEO of a bazillion-dollar company, this really touched my heart. Not I'm discounting the CEO of a bazillion-dollar company, because what they're doing, but this man, what he could have just been sitting there, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
When I read it, I cried. I'm like tears of joy. I read this. I have to keep reading it, and I cried.
Yes.
I still makes me teary-eyed. See, we don't know where brilliance comes from. We must be willing to allow the brilliance to come out, and we can't stop it no matter what the color is. We must allow the brilliance.
Ah, goodness. Thank you again. Wonderful to be with you. We've spent the hour with Sherry Anshara. Make sure you check her out on social media, as well as her books and her website, sherryanshara.com. And when this is a podcast, we will have all those pieces of information and the hyperlinks for you. Again, Sherry, thanks for your time. You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio X, broadcasting live from within the Max 6 Conscious Workspace studio. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Owicki. Thanks for listening.